it can just be a snare when we start making the algorithm and metrics and data define our work versus letting that serve our work. It's only when you break free from that God can freely move through you and express himself through you. Hey everyone, welcome back to Grace of Bell. My name is Natalie Grace, and at Grace of Bell, we explore life and beauty through the lens of God's grace, from womanhood, motherhood, health, and just everything in between, just growing into the person that God created us to be. First of all, I'm sorry if my mic is a little muffled at any point. This was like the best option. This, part on my neck was the best option I could think of to place it, because there was just, anyways, it was just awkwardly hanging on my shirt. You couldn't really hear me from the back. So this is what we're working with today. But anyways, I'm excited to get into today's episode, and I won't lie, I am filming this much later than I wanted to because there have just been so many changes in my family lately to navigate. All good, but it just means that I just kept having to delay this. But I'm really grateful to be here and dive into this next topic, which is really part 2 of my last episode, which was titled You Are Called to Create. And that episode was all about how we are made in the image of God, and therefore it is in our very design to create. We have this very unique ability as humans to imagine something in our head that has never existed before and bring it into existence. And we also have the ability to morally look back and discern what is right and wrong. We can actually determine what is good and bad, what is a blessing and what is a curse. And those are all very unique traits of being human. And they reveal something really remarkable about who we are and who we came from, because we are made in the image of God. We are made in the image of the Creator. So now this episode is really about getting, it's more of a focus on creating and how and why we create. Because while all of us are capable of creating, it does not mean that everything we create is in alignment with God. Of course, we know that we live in a broken world. There's a lot of bad things in the world. There's a lot of evil in the world. Humans are flawed and broken, and so we can choose wrongly. And, that aside, even if we're not creating something necessarily bad or sinful, we can just create in a way that causes us to be a little bit off course from the path that God intended for us. There's so many distractions in the world, and we can easily just get derailed through our own desires and distractions from what God is really calling us to create. Because we're not called to create just anything. We're called to be an extension of God and to be the light. You were called to create, and you were called to be the light. And so this episode is really about creating an alignment with God versus for applause, or versus serving an algorithm, which I think we see so much today. Algorithms often guiding our creating versus algorithms serving our creating. So it's about choosing alignment. It's about choosing depth over speed. It's about choosing substance over views and virality. And it's really about choosing meaning and choosing and making sure that your creating is in alignment with the path that God has created for you. And I also touch on honoring seasons because that is a really important element of creating. Um, Creating in alignment with God, honoring the season that He has placed you in. So, we're going to dive into all of this today, and I'm really, really excited about it. Okay, so we are starting this off very simple today, getting to a simple children's story. And I read a lot of children's stories lately because, as you can imagine, with a 3-year-old boy. Um, but I really love children's stories because there's so much wisdom packed into such simple language. And I think that's the best way to communicate sometimes. Like, there's a reason that Jesus was always speaking in parables, right? And so this is the story of the 3 little pigs. Not sure if you know it, but just kidding. Yeah, I'm sure we all know it here, but just in case, here's a little recap of the 3 little pigs. So there's 3 little pig brothers. They all go out to build their own home. And the first little pig builds his home with sticks because it's quick and easy and he can relax after. The second little pig built his home with sticks because it demands a little bit more of him for a little more stability in the home, but still pretty easy. But the eldest pig, he built his home with bricks, and it's thoughtful, it's intentional, it demands a lot more of him. But in the end, as we all know, the brick house was the only house left standing when the wolf came. And it's such a good lesson. It's a simple story, but it's such a darn good lesson on the posture that we are called into when we create. Um, it's one of those things where if it's worth doing, it's worth doing well. And we really, when we create, we want to not only um, we don't want to just bless ourselves. When we create something good, then that blessing is an overpouring to others because the eldest pig got to protect him, his brothers, and it defeated the wolf because there was a fire in the chimney. And it just made me think about how we are so tempted. Like, culture can really allure us to build to build with hay and sticks and to choose speed over depth and to choose virality and views over creating something meaningful, like particularly in film or social media, um, and to create in a way that serves instant gratification versus long-term fruit. And it's like we can be so easily tempted to build with hay and sticks, but at the end, what's going to actually stand when the pressure comes, when adversity comes? It's only that with a strong foundation. And when it comes to alignment, like that story, I mean, I think that whatever you decide to commit to, it should be done with excellence. So, if something is worth doing, it's worth doing well. So there's that side of creating for God. But then when it comes to alignment with God, it's like there are many times where people in the Bible were following through on God's instruction, they were obedient, and yet they were not getting the external approval. They were not getting applause from people. They were sometimes made fun of or mocked. Like Jeremiah. Jeremiah was young and he was a prophet and he felt foolish speaking for God. No one wanted to listen to him. Nehemiah, I just recently finished reading the book of Nehemiah. because I subscribe to She Reads Truth, and I get this beautiful book every month of a biblical theme. And September was Nehemiah. So I say recently, but I mean, it was a couple months ago, but that was the first time that I had read the story of Nehemiah. And Nehemiah was a man who he took initiative to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. And he just felt this huge burden on his heart. And it just really revealed how much of a prayerful man he was, because what grieved God grieved Nehemiah. And so he decided, okay, if I'm feeling such a burden over this right now, I I have to take this as a sign that there's something that I need to do. And so he got permission from the king to leave his land, and he began building the walls of Jerusalem. And he had many hands helping him, but the whole time there was so much opposition. They were mocked, they were laughed at, they were made fun of, they were told this is never going to happen. And then, amazingly, the walls were built very quickly. And immediately it was like silence among the enemies, because they were like no one was expecting this. And it was just such proof that God's hands were on this project. And there's this one quote that Nehemiah says that I love so much. And he says, when he hears the opposition, when he hears the mocking and people telling him to stop and turn around or whatever, he says, I am doing a great work and I cannot come down. And it's something that we can take with us in whatever we are doing and whatever we feel called to do. There are going to be distractions. There are going to be temptations. But Nehemiah was basically saying, I will not let you distract me. I will not let you derail me from what I know God has called me to do. I am doing a great work and I cannot come down. I love it. And so, you know, creating an alignment with God, doing the hard work doesn't always look glamorous. It might not get external approval. But the thing is, creating with God will always give you a better reward than any worldly applause here. So, I mean, almost always there's victories that happen that defy odds, and they defy what our normal logic can wrap our heads around. Sometimes we feel like we should do something, but then we're like, trying to come up with all these logical explanations why not. But sometimes we just need to separate ourselves from the outcome, and we just need to step forward in faith, knowing that we don't have to have all the answers, but he gives you just enough. If what you envision doing is a whole staircase, he will give you enough to step on enough light for the next step. And that's all you need, right? Now I'm going to speak on the trap that many people can fall into when it comes to serving the algorithm and data, which I feel is very relevant today, especially. And first of all, I'll just start off by saying there's nothing wrong with data, of course. Like, data guides doctors, it saves lives, it supports security, solves world hunger. Like, I'm of course not knocking data where it's important. But as creators, when we fall into the habit of serving an algorithm and serving metrics, it can dull our expression. And what I mean by that is, you see, God desires to express himself through you and through your work. But when you're serving an algorithm, your creativity is capped by those invisible boundaries. And it's only when you break free from that God can freely move through you and express himself through you. Because there's things that God knows about you, that the Holy Spirit wants to reveal to you, that data never could. And you were born in this time, in this place, in this generation for a reason. So you do fill a gap. And it's not something that data is just going to point out to you, but it's something that can only be known through God, through the one who made you. You know, in the last episode, I shared about my beginnings with Grace of Bell and how this started so far from perfectly. And honestly, it was a completely different space. It may as well have been a different name, but I chose to keep the name. And I explained that in my last episode because, well, I think the name was always meant to be. But this was a very different space when I started. And that was just because I knew I wanted to create something. I just didn't know what it was going to be. And truthfully, like I was kind of building on hay and sticks. Okay. I didn't know what I was doing. And I was kind of allured by the booming e-commerce industry. And so because I didn't know what to do, I just found myself devouring e-commerce training, learning how to drop ship products through Shopify, learning how to sell products on Amazon, how to sell products on Etsy. I just immersed myself in this training. And I found this pattern in all of these trainings, which was basically, the pattern I noticed was this: serve the algorithm, follow the trends, find the niches, excel at keywords, find the gaps, and create what sells, not what you want. Create what they want, not what you want. And as far as profits, like, it's a good formula. It will get you there to make money. But as a creator, your posture now shifts from authentic creation to calculated production. And it turns into a game. It's just a constant data searching game. Where can I bring products into the market to fill gaps and then move on to the next thing? And I don't think it's a game God wants us to play, because I imagine it's only distracting us from the real fruit we're meant to be creating. While data can reveal what is popular, it cannot reveal what is purposeful for you. And so we see this trend of serving data and algorithms everywhere, in entertainment, in fashion, in music. And I'm just going to look at Netflix as an example, but it's true across all, streaming platforms. So streaming services like Netflix rely heavily on data to inform their decisions in what they're going to produce, because Netflix is also a production company, right? So their entire business model depends on engagement and subscriptions. But here's the shift. People do not watch film in the way they once used to. It's no longer this intentional moment that we have to carve time out for. People see movies in theaters today as much as people are seeing Broadway now. I mean, I don't know that for a fact, but I'm just judging that by my own patterns. But even when I was younger, and we would like spend half the night finding a movie at Blockbuster. And then since you rented that movie and you have it for like 2 days, you're going to make the most out of it. You're going to like carve out time to sit and pay attention to that movie and, maybe watch it twice or three times before you give it back. But yeah, we just don't have that kind of film. Is not It doesn't have to be such an intentional moment anymore. um People have these a roster at their fingertips with these streaming platforms, and they can play like 3 movies within the span of 10 minutes because they get bored and want to go on to something else, before a movie is just like playing in the background. And so, because people's attention spans are down, there is also correlation with the quality of films going down. Because for these streaming services and these production companies, it becomes a matter of how can we produce content quickly enough to keep people engaged. And so they have these deadlines to push content out, and then it's okay, what is going to what is going to achieve engagement? What are the check marks for good data? Celebrity, sex, shock value. Combine those ingredients. You could basically get like an AI script. Combine those ingredients, and the data will reward you. But not necessarily because this film had meaning and soul and depth, but because it checked the algorithm's boxes, and because the production company has enough financial backing and resources to produce a very polished looking film without much depth behind it. I hate to sound like so pessimistic. Obviously, there are amazing films still on Netflix. There's great productions. I'm not saying this is all the time. There are incredible artists in every industry who refuse this path, who are creating amazing, soulful art. I'm just saying that it's a pattern that we can see, and it's one that creators with the best intentions can get caught up in. It can just be a snare when we start making the algorithm and metrics and data define our work versus letting that serve our work. So now I feel a responsibility to balance this whole message with honoring seasons in your life and honoring seasons and timing, because that is really important. You can't walk in alignment with God. You can't create an alignment if you're not honoring the season that He has placed you in. And I don't want this message to be misunderstood as creating is a green light to, creating with God is not a green light to make reckless decisions, to quit your job impulsively, to neglect responsibilities in the name of serving your creative passion. Okay? Timing matters to God, order matters to God, seasons are important. And maybe you are in a job right now and you feel that your creativity is capped, and you don't feel you're expressing your potential or something. But it might be exactly where God needs you now to shape you and refine you and to build the character that He requires of you. You might not be building a brand, but you might be building a character. And it is unrealistic to think that we will work for perfect people in perfect companies, that we will work with perfect people, because we live in a broken world. It's not, nothing is always going to be perfect, but God moves through imperfect places, and he might need you there. He might need you exactly there right now to only prepare you for what's ahead for you, or to serve others in that company. You don't always know what the reasons are, but it's important to not just make these impulsive decisions, and to it's important to use discernment. And and you know outside of the office, maybe your season of creating right now is creating peace and stability in your home for your children and family. Motherhood, home, is a holy assignment. For me, I love pouring myself into Grace of Bell. It is nourishing for me. But my role as a mother and as a wife is a higher call in my life. In the order of priorities of my life, those come first. Even if there's days where I do want to pour myself more into this, I know that I have to work in alignment with the priorities that have already been placed in my life. So to sum this point up, creating an alignment with God means honoring the season he has placed you in. And the only way to know when to pivot or change courses or step into something new is through listening closely and asking him and spending time with him and having a personal relationship with him. And you need to lower the noise to give him space to do that. That is one thing, that is one lesson that I have been that is a season of my life I have been in lately, lowering the noise to just hear what he wants from me. In the end, we're all creating something. Every thought, every conversation, every interaction, every decision, brick by brick, you are building a life. And it's the most important thing you will ever build. Let it be one that you can stand strong by when it's the end, and when you look back, and on the day you meet your maker. Let it be one that reflects the one who made you. Choose alignment over applause. Choose substance over speed. Choose depth and meaning over virality and views. Because it's in that path where your creating is empowered by the one who created you. I really hope that this message encouraged you. I hope it blessed you. I really prayed over this message before filming today. Oh, sorry, Sean is singing downstairs. I don't know if you guys hear this. Hopefully my mic is doing its job. It sounds amazing. But anyways, he's got a loud voice. Yeah. Thank you so much for listening. This is the Grace of Bell podcast, where life and beauty meet his grace. I will see you next time, whenever that is. Thank you so much. As always, I love to hear from you. I would love to know how this resonated with you, or if this sparked anything in you that you want to share. Thank you so much. God bless.